Hey guys, it's Michael here. Before we start the show, I just wanted to explain something that we're switching things up a little bit. Originally, we were going to air our Part 5 episode of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend with our very special guest, Rachel Bloom.
Hey.
Who's with us right now. But we decided, because of scheduling issues, we actually had to tape Rachel's episode after Jen Kirkman's episode, which you're listening to now. And upon recording, we decided it was best to play these episodes in order as they were recorded. So you're going to listen to Jen Kirkman's episode right now, and then next week we will be back with part 5 of our Crazy Ex-Girlfriend month with Rachel Bloom. So stay tuned.
It's Bigfoot Collectors Club with Bryce and Michael. I know a ghost story or two. Let's do this.
Hey guys,
What's up?
What's up, dudes and dudettes? It's Bigfoot Collectors Club. I'm your host, Michael McMillan. With me always is your other host,
Bryce Johnson.
Hi, Bryce.
Hi, what's up, man?
Hey, man, we're back.
I know.
I mean, you know, the audience has been listening, hopefully, every week, but you and I are just back from a break.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, and we met last week, and we're still talking about this stuff, even when we're not recording.
I really missed it. I missed you. I missed Riley. I missed,
as well.
Missed talking about paranormal stuff every week.
Yeah.
Today, we have a really wonderful guest with us.
Yes, we do.
Oh, boy. Podcast gold. You know her from her latest Netflix special, Just Keep Living, and her podcast, I Seem Fun. Ladies and gentlemen, we have in the clubhouse with us today the amazingly hilarious Jen Kirkman.
Thank you. Yay.
Hi, Jen.
That was a quick. You got me right in.
Yeah, baby. We don't ramble too much.
Nah.
We like to keep. We like to bring you in right up front.
Oh, well, thanks for having me. I'm very excited.
Especially when we
good.
have somebody like you with us.
You are right about that.
Wow. So I'm excited because Jen and I have been friends for years.
Mm-hmm.
And we always get, every time we get together, we talk too much about what's happening in our current lives. And we haven't actually ever had a conversation about the supernatural. But I know that Jen is into the paranormal.
Oh, wow.
And
Wait,
so
I think we talk about aliens a lot.
we've never we've always talked about talking about them, but we've never actually
Well, you're in the right
done it.
place.
Because
Yeah.
you told me that story about the FBI and all that.
Oh, right.
I mean, yeah,
the time
in
I was
my
investigated by
mind,
the FBI
Maybe we've
for
just
setting up a meeting at Trump Tower.
Oh, my God. I didn't
different.
know
yeah,
that.
with a bunch of aliens. Yeah, it
Maybe we've just texted about it. But you know, the whole thing that bums me out.
was actually the CIA.
The
Yeah,
CIA.
Listen. I have an elderly cousin who's passed away, whose husband used to work for the CIA, and she told me when I was visiting her, she used to live up in the Central Coast, and she told me that her first husband, before he died of very mysterious circumstances, he had told her that the Roswell incident was in fact true, and had shown her a top secret document that Harry S. Truman had sent out, sent out to like CIA field agents that were like, it was a manual for search and recovery in case there was another crash saucer, and it covered what they found in Roswell, what the beings looked like, and it was basically like be on the lookout for certain rank and file CIA members, and he told her all about that, and then. So she was like, "Oh yeah," because she said that her second husband, who she knew for years, she knew her husband for years. She was married to for years. They had like a seaside resort where famous Hollywood people used to go up, and she said that they used to see UFOs out by the ocean all the time. That's how this got started. So I said, "Oh, you believe in UFOs?" She's like, "Oh yeah."
Oh my God.
Wait.
CIA is
Oh God.
here. You shouldn't have said something.
Put me under the table.
This is even just...
Hide me under the coffee table.
It's not even live.
No, I know.
That's how they bug everything.
They're listening live all the time. Anyway, so I did tell you about about
Yeah.
that. And then, she used to have, like, after he died, she used to have, like, G-men come by the house. This is back in the, like, 40s, 50s.
Well, that's
for
crazy.
years. And,
we're
talk
coming to
her.
a time where there's what you're getting now is a lot of what's called deathbed confessions. And there's so much personnel surrounding, incidents like Roswell and stuff. And a lot of these guys who, handled the trucks or handled the whatever, they're getting old now and they want to tell their story. And those are some of the great revealing accounts that we get so much insightful information. And well, especially when you have documented files too that can be released through the Freedom of Information Act. I mean,
But
there's
don't
a
you
lot
think
of
Trump
stuff.
would have just done it?
Well, Bill Clinton tried to do it twice, and Jimmy Carter tried to do what are you referring to, by the way?
Well, I thought that they were going to declassify a bunch of stuff, which probably, again, would never be the stuff that says, here's the aliens. But you would think that maybe if he had access to even knowing it, that he'd accidentally say it because he's him.
Yeah, I mean,
He might not be interested in
Well,
that, though.
I actually don't think
He doesn't seem
the
curious.
presidents are necessarily informed of all this stuff because the Pentagon, the CIA, the people who know about like the deep military stuff, and I don't want to say deep state because then I sound like a real conspiracy theorist, but the people who know
Yeah.
about the history of it, they are career-long military people, and the president is in office from anywhere from 4 years to 8 years.
Well, that's right.
They're not necessarily on a need-to-know basis with this stuff.
I mean, and that's
Oh, that's true.
I don't. I think they keep it. Think that they keep it away from the president.
Well, yeah,
That makes
imagine
sense.
these Air Force generals that have to, like, every time a new president comes in, they've got to, kind of go over the the status quo of what's happening.
Yeah. Well, I think Truman knew because Roswell happened when Truman was president.
Of
and
course.
nothing had happened like that before. And they went, okay, they didn't even know how to handle it from a PR standpoint, to the point that the Army base press guy sent it to the local Roswell newspaper. It was like, yep, we recovered a craft. It's a flying saucer. We've got one.
Yeah.
And it was only after it had gone to press that his commanding officer went, whoa. We need to shut this down. We need to walk this back because people cannot know about this.
I have a theory, and I know that's not what we're talking about today, but I just want to say
We can talk about whatever you want.
time travel would have to exist for aliens to have landed. That's just it.
What do you mean? Unpack that.
Because they are light years away. And it would take, if one left home right now to get here, who knows what the Earth would be by the time it gets here.
Right.
So
Yeah.
they can't be alive still when they land. So maybe an alien started light years ago and they got here in the 40s.
Right.
But they would be dead bodies in a craft.
That's assuming that they're traveling at the speed of light.
Could they, then they'd have to time travel otherwise.
Well, or they have figured out how to
Wormholes.
punch a wormhole.
Wormholes.
And it's like the old Wrinkle in Time thing where you have
it just gets, that's where I go, no, they didn't.
where you know how to bend space time and basically build a shortcut through space to pop in and out from one place
Like
to
a
another,
tunnel.
like teleporting, basically.
My mind can't comprehend it, but I'm
Sure.
sure people couldn't comprehend
Well,
penicillin, so
think-
who knows?
Exactly, and think about this: these alien species have at least, if they're at the point where they're building spacecraft and traveling that far, or time traveling, like you've said,
Yeah.
these species must have at the very least 1,000-year head start on evolution.
Yeah.
At times, probably even millions of years.
Well, this brings
so
me to
they
my
have
next theory.
science that we can't even imagine yet.
I see, now that is an explanation, but I don't gravitate to that one. That's why my thing is always, they are not from space. We are wrong. And Hitler, I believe, agrees with me on this.
Wait,
They are.
Let her keep going.
Well, I said this once, and someone unfortunately said, I think Hitler used to say that. I'm like, I didn't know that.
Oh.
They are always above.
Very few things you want to say. You want to follow up with Hitler agrees with
He was
me on
also
this.
obsessed with
Yes, and
with
I
the
believe
paranormal.
that's why I believe sometimes that those flying saucers. I mean, that's Germany Nazi engineering as well, and
Yeah.
we were stealing their
Oh, so you think that it's actually modern technology?
some of it. But I also think these aliens we speak of from space are from underwater,
Yep.
and that's why flying saucers are always over the water, and
Yep.
that way they can be here and they don't have to time travel. It is a
Well,
deep sea
Now, are they
motherfucking thing.
terrestrial?
Well, I think you're onto something.
They're not
you know?
extraterrestrial. They are
Or
terrestrial.
what if they're extraterrestrial and they're just the bases that they've set up are underwater?
Then I'd still have to believe in that wormhole shit,
Well,
which I don't.
here's the other thing that I think that goes back to your original point. What if the aliens are actually us from the future, evolved thousands millions of
I've
years,
always thought that.
and are time traveling back now to visit us?
I want to touch on that.
I'm down with that.
One of the best UFO cases comes out of Germany, right next to a nuclear military base, and it's called.
Oh, I love that one.
Yeah, it's called the Rendlesham Forest case. And,
I love that
anybody. So anyway, a lot of these military guys, they saw this craft land in the woods, and they sent out a team to go investigate. The one guy who actually laid eyes on the craft and laid hands on it, I forget his name. But anyway, he would
Hitler.
It was not Hitler. He would report back that the weird hieroglyphic symbols that he was seeing immediately come to his mind when he placed his hand on that. Later, he would uncode those in a manner, and what he thought he discovered was a message from us from the future.
Did it say anything about Donald Trump?
It didn't say anything about Donald Trump, but a very familiar theme that a lot of these people get. Yeah, that's right. Is nuclear proliferation, and also the dangers that we're kind of coming into with our environment and our technology.
Do you think we nuked ourselves and we've come back?
Who knows? I mean, that's as good of a.
Well,
I love where your mind is.
Graham
though.
Hancock thinks, if you follow Graham Hancock,
I love
who's
him.
a really cool writer.
He's the best.
He wrote Fingerprints of the Gods, which basically proposes that, starts with that they think that there are ancient maps that show Antarctica before it was covered in the ice.
Yeah.
And that they're old, like really old maps. And then he basically talks about that there was an ancient civilization, and part of Egypt's ancient, the Sphinx and the pyramids were actually part of that ancient civilization. And that he thinks that because you can look at sediment and look at like geological samples of that there was thousands of years ago, 10,000 years ago, around the time that we talk about the dawn of mankind, the modern man emerging, that there is evidence that there was some type of heavy radioactive or nuclear blast. Now, you might think, in your imagination, you can go, oh, we blew ourselves up once and now we're making our way back. They think that a lot of the myths of Atlantis, when Plato would talk about there used to be this great society and these that was very far advanced, and they find bones that they have found bones that predate the earliest days that we say Homo sapien was like up and running around and doing its thing. That's a very scientific.
I'm with you.
They're up and around
yeah,
and
But
doing
I
their
think
thing.
Graham Hancock, I think, is now leaning more towards that there was a meteor that hit that was an extinction level event, kind of like what happened to the dinosaurs, that blew back, knocked our civilization back to the Stone Age 10, 11,000, 12,000 years ago, or 30,000 years ago, whatever it is. I don't have the math off the top of my head.
Yeah, and to add to that, they, a lot of these guys that write these books, I mean, they kind of theorize that there were multiple extinction level events, not just one, but that we can obviously agree that there was some sort of deluge. I mean, some sort of flood. All societies and cultures point to that sort of mythos, and so we can accept that there was something like that happen. But yeah, I mean, the Hopi Indian tribe, they believe that we're in the fifth world. I believe that it's been destroyed 4 other times completely before, and here we are on number 5 go around.
Well, and the scary thing is, it seems like we get to about the point where we're at now before the reset button gets hit.
Yeah, I mean, we're obviously like that. Like that dime you send down those wishing well things where they go down the funnel. It starts going very slowly until it gets to that concrescence, and then it speeds up to an infinitum. And I think that we are very close at this time in history where we are that dime spinning right at the end of the funnel. We're getting very close. Our technology doubles every 2 years. We're not even there spiritually yet, but our technology is kind of overcompensating us.
2 quick things. First of all, the nuclear alien thing, was that the case where they flew by and they would just shut the plants down?
Two
kind of
different
thing?
cases. That was
okay.
that was here in America where
Guys,
that is a famous.
I'm not kidding.
Was that your story?
I have that in my story.
That's
for
the
today.
Well, then
story.
that's the
I
story.
think it's the story.
The other quick thing I was going to say is I'm enjoying Hillary Clinton's book. And one of the things she talked about was she wanted to, she had all these ideas and things. And one of the things she wanted to talk about on the campaign trail is our use of technology and using it responsibly, and it's getting ahead of us.
Without a
and
doubt.
AI is dangerous. And her people were like, no.
Yeah.
You will get killed. You cannot go out there and be like, the robots will take us over. She's like, but they're gonna. And they're like, Hillary, you cannot. And she's like, okay. And I just thought that was so amazing. Like, she had a thing like ready to like campaign on, and they were
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah.
no, lady.
No.
But she's right.
Yeah.
But it just would have been amazing if that was like what she's remembered for instead of like, I help children. Just like Hillary said, the robots will take us over.
You bring up a great point. I mean, what if we're at this crossroads where one way we're exploring our solar system through virtual reality, which is not really us, and then there's the other way where it's actually us interested in spatial exploration and getting there physically, not just like staying here at home and playing video games.
I
about it.
hope that the aliens
That'd
are
be great.
time travelers, because that means we make it
Yeah.
to some degree. I
Yeah.
mean, we don't, and also we're all just withering into tiny little gray beings with big heads and big eyes and
Right. Well, yeah. Bigger brains, smaller
Bigger
mouths.
brains.
Who
Yeah.
knows? Who knows?
I don't like it.
Jen.
Yeah.
So where do you stand with Sasquatch? Where do you believe in Bigfoot?
No, but I'm not. When pushed, I guess that's how I feel. I've never really been asked that directly. I guess that's how I feel.
There's a first time for everything.
But I do think there's probably some people have seen. There's probably been the myth of it, and then someone has done dressed like him in the woods to fuck with people.
Mm-hmm.
The original thing people saw, was it some kind of bear walking on its hind legs? It's probably what I think.
Mm-hmm. It can happen.
I mean, I'd love there to be. Why not?
Yeah.
I just don't. It doesn't. My gut doesn't say I believe that.
right.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then what about ghosts?
That I can get with a little more, because I think energy is something we can't comprehend, and it has to do with that and our psychic vibes. And it may not literally be a ghost, but it's some kind of
Psychic reflection, maybe.
there's a psychic reflection. There's an energy can't be destroyed or created, so maybe blah and blah, that kind of thing.
Speaking of psychic powers or experiences, you have a personal paranormal experience.
I sure do.
Ooh.
And we need to hear about it.
Yes,
Okay.
please share.
Well, it's all in what I was saying with the ghosts and the psychic and whatever. When my Nana, who, by the way, she would have loved this podcast. She would listen
Nana,
to.
if you're listening,
oh,
we
Nana.
miss you.
She was died at 99 in her late 80s, and she was perfectly fine and she could walk. She just never got her license because they didn't let ladies do that, She never tried. So anyway, I mean they did, but anyway, she stopped going to church and started listening to Art Bell. That was like her trail.
Yeah.
And so
Good grandma.
Yeah, so she was like all conspiracy theoried out, and then added some Billy Graham in there, which didn't make sense. But she was very into the lost city of Atlanta. She talked about it a lot.
Yeah.
I don't really remember what she said. I just know she talked about it a lot.
Did she have like paintings of Atlantis in her home? Did she have like any cool, weird, new agey artwork or anything?
Oh no, she wasn't new age at all. Her apartment looked like a set of just
That's
like what an
funny.
old lady's. Her apartment, her house looked like the set of what an old lady liked.
But she liked to envision a lost city of Atlantis.
I think so. But anyway, the experience I had with her is we always had a little bond. I mean, everyone does with their grandmother, but she won class wit in the 1900s. And she wanted to be a seamstress, but again, like everything was, you can't, you get married, and her husband won't let me, blah, blah. So I always felt there was...
She won't even let her sew.
Yeah. There was
Fucking
something...
men.
There was something between us that I felt, I don't know, maybe we vibed a little bit, but she lived in her home and died she was on the floor in the kitchen. We don't know what happened. I think probably got dizzy and fell at age 99. And it's not like I'm saying she was on my mind all the time. I was always like, just a fleeting thought. Someday my Nana's going to be found dead because she
Yeah.
doesn't go anywhere and she lives at home, and Uncle Paul lives,
That's just planning for the future at that point.
a town away. Well, yeah. And so I'm like, that's how it's going to go.
Yeah.
She's whatever. So I'm not trying to be like, I guessed that she died. This is what happened. I had just talked to her like the week before. We didn't talk often, but sometimes we did. She couldn't really hear anymore on the phone. And
sounds like it was her time to go, Jen.
it was her time. I don't know. She could have had, my mother goes, death is so unfair. I go, she lived till 99. That's like the most fair.
Jackpot.
That's really
Yeah.
fair. Yeah.
I mean, you only want to hit 100 anyway just for bragging rights.
Right. Totally.
I think what my mother's trying to say, but I don't think she wants to say, is like, it's unfair that we were ever born. Because there's no good age for her that we should die.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't also think she's saying we should live forever. I think it's an existential, like,
Yes.
We're here to suffer.
Yeah, like it's out of control that I'm here.
Yeah, we are born into death.
Yeah.
So to speak.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, anywho, this is my paranormal experience. So I had just begun working at the show Chelsea Lately. It was 2008. And Chelsea was in the writer's room and she said, I want you to watch this skit that I filmed and you can sit in the editing bay while we edit it. And it was her going and talking to old people. And I was like, I felt this like love for my Nana so much. And I was like, my Nana is so funny. Oh my God. And she won class wit. And I feel like she would have been really good in this. It's so sad that like she doesn't live here. And I just went off into this la la land. And Chelsea was like, are you done talking about your grandmother or do you have any notes for this thing? Whatever. And I was like, I don't know. She's just on my mind today and whatever. And so I called my sister from my desk and I was like, oh, I'm just thinking about Nana. I feel so sad. Like I feel like bad that I don't know. I feel like I should see her more or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
She was really on my mind. Sister's like, oh, whatever. I go to bed that night. I have a dream. Now, my Nana and I would watch the comedy competition on Star Search all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And she would always sit next to me. And if she didn't like something, and she had a good sense of humor, she liked good TV, she would turn to me and go, kind of stupid, isn't it?
Kind of stupid, isn't it?
Yeah. And so
Almost embarrassed that
Yeah.
she's watching it,
So I had a dream that I was at the Comedy Central Workspace, which if people out there don't know, it's
Melrose.
just a tiny little theater here in LA.
Right? Santa Monica?
Santa Monica.
Santa Monica.
It's actually called the Hudson Theater, I guess.
Boulevard. I
Oh,
mean.
yeah.
And weirdly, with love to my friend Jason Nash, who's very funny, it was his one-man show that I was watching in my dream. And I think he's brilliant, and I probably had just seen him perform, and that's why he was on my mind. But my Nana was next to me, and I heard her voice go, kind of stupid, isn't
Oh,
it?
no, that's funny.
And I was about to turn to her and go, no, Nana, he's really cool. He's
I
really
know
funny.
him.
Yeah. And I turned, and my Nana was like 23 years old, and she was in one of her little outfits, and she was like all beautiful and young. And I was like, Nana, you look so young. And she goes, yeah, we're young here. And I go, where? And she goes, where I am. You're young again. And I go, oh, okay. And then that was it. And she's like, don't worry, I'm okay. And I was like, okay. And then I woke up in the middle of the night and I was sneezing and I couldn't stop sneezing. And I said to my husband at the time, I'm divorced. That's not part of the story. But I said to my husband,
Didn't see that one coming, did you?
I said to my husband, like, he told me I said this, but I do remember waking up and talking to him and going, the window and he said in the morning, I was like, that lavender bush in our yard is making me sneeze, shut the window. And we lived in an apartment in West Hollywood and our window faced a brick patio with a trash can outside. There was no lavender anywhere. My grandmother has bushes and bushes of lavender right under her kitchen windows.
Wow.
And so her kitchen always smelled like lavender. It was really intense, especially as things grew and she got older. And so I woke up and I was like, oh, Nana. And I was like, I really have to call her. Then I get to work and my sister called. She's like, this is so fucking weird. She's like, Uncle Paul went to Nana's today and he found her dead. And they said she's been dead for about 24 hours. And I was like, oh my God. It like lines up with exactly when she was on my mind. Of course, Chelsea showing me the elderly thing. Again, that's not a psychic connection, but who wouldn't think of their own grandmother? But then the dream I had.
But maybe that helped get you in the mindset to receive.
Maybe
that
it did. I
message.
mean, it's
you
like
know what I mean? It was kind of like priming your third eye.
But the
for
lavender
what was
thing
coming.
is like she died on the floor under that window.
Was she allergic to lavender?
No, but it's just really.
Yeah,
she
she was
loved
in the
lavender.
kitchen where the lavender was.
So it's very weird. And she
Were you allergic to lavender?
No, I love it.
Weird.
It was just like it was like, it was such an overwhelming smell. Like it was like if it was being in the middle of the night, if someone put a flower under my nose.
Right, like get it, I'm trying to sleep.
Yeah, it was like that. And then, but just
Jen,
that,
really
but just that she
powerful.
went, I'm young here.
Yeah.
And so then I had another dream that night where she was, and I think this was just more, that's an imagination kind of dream because she didn't really say great things about her husband after he died. But I had a dream that night that I looked in a window and they were like dancing together in a kitchen. And
wow.
She was in that same young outfit.
Oh, wow.
But the other thing that happened is when we were cleaning out her stuff at her house, the doorbell just would not stop ringing. There's no one there. It was just like ding dong, ding dong, ding dong. And every time we'd be like, my uncle and I.
Kind of stupid, isn't it? Okay, Grandma.
My uncle and I really believe in ghosts. And so we always have talked about ghosts in my family. So we'd be like, does this piss her off when we make fun of this? And that it would just get comical to like how much the doorbell would ring.
That is so wild.
And so she used to always say to him, Paul, you got to fix the doorbell. And he would be like, it is fixed, Ma. You just can't hear it anymore.
Oh, my gosh.
And so that was like a running thing with them was the doorbell. Because that's why when he found her dead, he'd been ringing and ringing. And he could hear it and she couldn't. And he's like, he was so stressed out because every time he went to her house every week to check on her, she didn't hear the doorbell. And he was like, she's dead. And then she'd come to the window by accident. So he has to knock and bang. And this time he's like, I got to use the key. Fuck, I'm going to find my mom dead. So it was just ironic that the doorbell was, I can't believe I didn't start with that.
Yeah.
That's the weirder part.
No. All
but
of this
like,
is.
So there's something there. Like, I think of all things, she would want to come back and tell us stuff. But then, those things always seem to dissipate right after they die. Like, so I'm wondering, is your energy still hanging around and you're communicating like your deathbed confessions?
Look, or you can take her word for it and she's on the other side and still exists in the afterlife and she's communicating with you.
Well, and I think to speak on this too, and I have a similar story with my stepfather.
I have one too.
But when death occurs, there's sometimes there is some sort of like a signal, a sign, and it happens relatively close to when death occurs. And you're absolutely right. It tails off. It trails off. So do they send us a message and move on?
Yeah.
Is it an energy that we're picking up as a frequency? Are we receptive to just some sort of energetic field left behind by them?
Yeah.
How does that ring a doorbell? I don't know. It's a great story filled with mystery and it's special.
Yeah.
And I love these stories that, we did a listener's file and one of my great friends, Donovan, he tells a story. His best friend's grandmother passed away and she used to tuck him in on the couch. Well, when she passed away, he still slated on the couch. And one night, the covers just kind of rolled up by themselves. And he felt her presence,
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't like scary. It was like, it was grandma.
Yeah, yeah.
And there's, that's neat.
I had a close family member. My uncle passed away 2.5 years ago, very quickly of brain cancer. And I had a dream. This was after he died. I had a dream that it'd been about a month maybe, and I walked into my sister's house, and my sister was there, and she was sitting in the living room with my uncle who had passed, and they were talking. It was like I'd interrupted a conversation, and I saw him, and I immediately burst out in tears, and he came up to me, and he was like, all right, come on here, and he patted me on the back. And I was just like, I just miss you a little bit, and he's like, it's okay. I'm good. You don't need to worry about me. Everything's good. Well, I was just talking to your sister and telling her the same thing. And it was a very comforting dream. And then I woke up, and the next day, my sister either called or texted me, and she said, I had a dream last night that I was in my living room, and Uncle Jerry came in, and he sat down with me in the living room and talked to me. And I was like, I came into that like in my and I just like couldn't believe it.
Michael's got like 5 or 6 of these where they're just like amazing. I was like, oh yeah, I was abducted once too. I forgot to tell you that.
I love it.
But this weekend, so this is really fresh on my mind because this weekend I, for the first time in over a year, my uncle came to me in my dream again. Wow. And I was like, dude, where have you been? And he said to me, he said 2 things that I really remember from the dream was he said, I go, why don't you come see me more often? He goes, it takes a lot That's what he said. He goes, it's a lot. It takes a lot. So I only come and check in with you when
That's
it's
wild.
when it's important.
Wow.
And then
What's so important right now?
well, I just think he just wanted. I've been. I mean, nothing that is life or death, but I'm just going through a period in my life where you
could use some comfort.
Yeah, I just need a little guidance, or I'm a little stressed out about this or that. And then, so there was part of the element of the dream was part of that. And then the other thing I said to him, I go, I got to ask you before you go so you're like, there's a heaven, you're there. And he goes, yes. And I go, how is it? And he goes, look, it's different than what we.
It's like Olive Garden. How was it? It's different
No. Yeah.
than the commercials.
No, he goes. It's
Still
not
good.
quite
Lots of
what.
bread.
It's not quite what a certain religion will tell you it is. He goes, but it's great.
Wow.
And so I took that as to mean like we're not all sitting on fluffy clouds playing harps with halos over our heads. But he's like, yep, we're there. And I go, is everybody like granddad? Everybody's like, yep, everybody's there. And we are having a great time. It's all good. We are able to see everything that's going on here. And, every now and then he goes, I just don't check in all the time because he said it's difficult. It's hard to do. It takes a lot. He said it takes a lot.
That's
So I
wild.
just think maybe energetically, I don't know. I mean,
or he's
this could have
having
all
too
be-
good of a time, and he's like, "You're kind of a lot."
You're being a buzzkill.
Yeah.
It's a lot to deal with.
No, but I was thinking that I worked just really briefly. I had an opportunity when I had a day job years and years ago, I worked on this thing, and there was this medium, and she was helping this girl who had this spirit in her house, and she caught it on film. It was this black blob, whatever. As it turned out, the woman was like, I totally believe in this. It is a spirit. It's a negative energy. It's actually because you're living with your boyfriend who's really bad alcoholic, and he's attracting it. And she's like, people who are drunk attract spirits. And it can be written off as, well, you were drunk. When our boundaries are down, they can come in, and that means even negative. So
Wow.
I'm wondering if when we're in deep grief, our sort of portals are open and we're open to experiences that we don't even know.
And you are
I was-
literally in those points very close to death because you've just experienced it from someone you love,
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, though, if we came to you, like if you were experiencing any kind of pain, because maybe it's like then
I did have 3 bottles of wine that night.
Well,
no, I'm just kidding.
But
I was
when he
perfectly
says
sober,
it's
actually.
when he says it's difficult, he might not even mean just from his side. It's like you guys are so closed off all the time. I can't get in.
Yeah, it
Well,
takes
he's
a lot
like-
to get through.
He's
Yeah.
like, you
It
guys
could
don't
have
get
been on
that
me.
radio station. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? If it's a frequency, an energy thing, then it rides on a frequency, and so if maybe to add on to what you're saying, and Mike, even when you tell that great story of Mary Hollandaise and how you guys share the same ghost, if I recall, you guys were both in sort of a similar mindset,
Yeah.
And so maybe there's something there. I love that's why I love having this show and bringing guests on, because we're getting all these interesting perspectives. And I think you're right. There is something, our guards down, or there's a field that's available to the underworld or whatever. Who knows?
Yeah,
But it's
love it.
fascinating.
Well, I'll tell you what. You just said field. That's my way to segue.
That's where UFOs land.
That's awesome. Great.
Well, I'll tell you what. We'll be right back with this week's topic of high strangeness.
Can't wait. Hey, what's up, guys? This is Bryce Johnson from Bigfoot Collectors Club. Listen, if you have a paranormal story, we want to hear it. Write to BigfootCollectorsClub@gmail.com with your paranormal encounter, and we just might read it on a future episode.
And we're back with Jen Kirkman in the Bigfoot Collectors Clubhouse. And it's time for our segment, High Strangeness.
High strangeness.
I never know how to frame that, but that's what it is. It's our story of the week, I guess. And I actually told the gang when before we started recording that I couldn't decide, and so I prepared 2 stories, and I was going to ask Jen to choose. However, I feel like the conversation has chosen for us, which is the way that this typically works. So this is the story of the Solway Firth Spaceman.
Oh, man.
Wave
yeah.
at my Instagram stories. Okay, sorry.
I'm trying to tell a story.
I know, sorry.
You know what? That's so wild. I was like, no, that's not the story that connects the nuclear warhead, but there is a nuclear base to that one. That is so
There are
wild.
more than one. So listen to this.
Wow. I love
May
this one.
23rd, 1963. It's Saturday, a sunny, cloudless day by the English seaside. The Searchers' Don't Throw Your Love Away was the top of the pops, and perhaps that very song was playing as Jim Templeton, a firefighter from nearby Carlisle, drove his wife Annie and their 2 daughters, Elizabeth and Francine, to the overlook of Solway Firth at Burgh Marsh, an open stretch of grassland near the seaside situated in Cumbria, England. Jim was a fireman by trade, but an amateur photographer at heart, and recently purchased a new Kodak camera and wanted to take some family photos at the scenic cow fields of the marsh. Now, once they arrived at their destination, Jim and Annie noticed that the cows and the sheep of Solway Firth, usually spread far and wide across the grass hills, were all huddled together at the far end of the field as if they had been frightened. The couple looked around and saw that they were alone, and it was a beautiful day, and shrugged off the sensation and went about their day. So Jim turns to his youngest daughter, Elizabeth, age 5, and he tells her to sit along the hillside so he can take a photo of her in her new dress. Elizabeth did as her father told, and Annie stood over Jim's shoulder with Francine at her side as he snapped 3 pictures of Elizabeth. How much longer the family stayed along the scenic marshes, I do not know. But satisfied with the photo shoot, Jim and Annie took their daughters back to the car and they drove home, having enjoyed a typical, non-eventful Saturday afternoon as a family. Things get weird a few days later when Jim received his photos from the shoot from the local chemist. Flipping through the snapshots of the family, Jim noticed something strange in one of the 3 photos he snapped of Elizabeth. In one of the photos, in an otherwise spotless blue sky backdrop, is the image of what looks to be some kind of spaceman standing behind Elizabeth. Just over the hill, with his back turned to the camera, his elbow jutting out with his fist presumably resting on his hips. The figure is noticeably male, I think, and you can see the muscular framework of his back, shoulders, biceps, and triceps. The spaceman, as he would soon come to be known, was called such because he is dressed in white and appears to be wearing some kind of helmet. Now, I'm going to show you the photo. We can pass it around.
The famous photo, yes.
Now, it's a smaller copy, but this is Elizabeth sitting in her new dress, and just over her shoulder is the spaceman popping out from behind her head.
I mean, this looks so
And you know, they weren't in the prior frame and they weren't in the previous frame. It was just the one frame.
So it looks kind of fake. It's 1964.
I mean,
now remember,
it's laughable.
hold on.
I'd love to see it.
Now it is, Jen. That's great that that's your attitude because we're going to unpack that.
I want it to be real.
Listen, this is pre-Photoshop, so just keep that in mind. Now, Jim and Annie were very perplexed by this strange sci-fi figure dropping into the quaint photo of their daughter. So troubled, in fact, that they called the police and informed them of the incident. Jim said in an interview, "I took the picture to the police in Carlisle, who, after many doubts, examined it and stated there was nothing suspicious about it. The local newspaper, the Cumberland News, picked up the story, and within hours it was all over the world. The picture is certainly not a fake, and I am as bemused as anyone else as to how this figure appeared in the background. Over the 4 decades the photo has been in the public domain, I have had many thousands of letters from all over the world with various ideas or possibilities, most of which make little sense to me. The police figured it was an error in the negative, and an overlay with another negative perhaps, but when inspected by the chemist and then later sent into Kodak Industries and they had their professionals examine the film, the negative, and the photograph, it was proven that the figure was, whatever it was in the negative. Was in the negative when the picture was
Captured
taken.
by the lens.
That was my question, because I was like, some smart ass at the Photoshop did
well, you
something
know,
that isn't
the
Photoshop.
story garnered so much attention that Kodak did, like Mike just said, they did offer to take a look at his negatives to help alleviate some of this public.
They offered a reward of like a year's worth of Kodak film.
That's
if
right.
Anyone could come forward and say and explain or who this person was,
or duplicate that same type of thing. Nobody can.
And then we have to go back to the cows looked scared earlier.
Yep. Just think about that. I don't know. So now there was no such person present at the marsh that day. The Templetons were sure that they were alone. And remember, and here's the thing: is Francine, their other daughter, and Annie, they insist were standing over Jim's shoulder the entire time. The Cumberland Press ran the story. Other papers picked it up, and soon everyone was talking about the strange spaceman that seemingly materialized into Elizabeth's photo. Not long after the incident, Templeton claims that he was working at the firehouse when two men in black suits that claimed to be from the government visited him and only referred to one another as numbers 9 and 11. They made I know. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a little on the nose. They made Templeton drive them out to the marsh where he had spotted the quote-unquote alien, but Templeton insisted that he hadn't actually seen anything because the being did not appear until he developed the film. So, frustrated, the MIB gave up and drove off and just left Templeton in the marsh. I don't know how he got home.
Right.
Meanwhile, the editor of the Cumberland News, the paper that originally ran the story, got in touch with Templeton because around the same time he took that photo, an Australian ICBM missile launch had been suddenly halted at the Woomera test range in Australia when two strange-looking men in white suits and helmets had appeared on the security cameras on the launch pad and then left with no traces. So the Australian officials that worked at Woomera had seen this photo that had been picked up in their local newspaper, instantly thought that looks like the two men that were in our photo.
Yeah. Well, and let me just say that.
Wow.
So you're at a military intercontinental ballistic missiles base, and you see two what looks like spacesuit guys on the launch platform. Whoa! Stop that! Who the fuck is that? What are they doing there?
Yeah, it looks like it could be men dressed in
It looks
crazy
just like that
outfits.
guy on the
Yeah.
Solway Firth Spaceman.
Yep.
And so they go down to check him out, and they're gone. I mean, literally, like as if you turn off a light, they disappear. Right? I mean,
Yep. Here's the photo. Actually, I forgot to bring it in, but
So
I'm pulling
can
it
these
up.
guys make themselves invisible,
Look,
these aliens?
here's the photo of the two guys on the basin. They actually do look a lot like the figure that is in this photo. Now, you might think, okay, a stretch, maybe, but perhaps less so when you learn that the Blue Streak missile being launched in Australia that day had in fact been manufactured at a facility near, you guessed it, Solway Firth. In fact, lights belonging to the facility that manufactured the missile can actually be seen in the distance off the horizon of the infamous photo. So in the photo to the right is actually, there are lights that of the facility where they built the Blue Streak missile.
So they built the Blue Streak missile in Firth then
Firth,
sent it to Australia
sent it
where
to
the
Australia
base
to
is.
test it. And this figure shows up in both locations.
Ugh.
yeah.
The story gets even weirder, though, because occurring within the same 2-week period, United States Air Force Lieutenant Robert Jacobs was filming a missile test, also of the same type of Blue Streak ICBM, at Vandenberg Air Force Base near Big Sur, California. They had been filming missile tests because many of the missiles that they were launching blew up on launch, and Lieutenant Jacobs was highly coveted for his work he set up an entire film crew with these big periscope cameras that shoot out into the outer atmosphere, and he was overseeing. They were like, we don't know why these missiles are failing. We need you to film this stuff. And this brings back to what you were talking about earlier, Jen. This ties into where we're saying upon launch of this missile launch, Lieutenant Jacobs' team filmed the missile, which was the launch was successful, and the guys celebrated and the shoot and the launch and thought, okay, cool, we did our jobs. The missile took off. This is great.
Got great footage of it.
Great footage, perfect footage of it. Everyone was super happy.
Clear day.
It was like a beautiful. It was like, that's a wrap. Check the gate. We nailed it. A few days pass, 2 days, I believe, and Lieutenant Jacobs was called in by his commanding officer, Major Mansman, and was invited into a meeting with two guys in gray suits. They showed Jacobs the footage of the launch, and what Jacobs saw was a foreign craft fly into frame, shoot a beam of light at the dummy warhead as it's breaking off. So they had the third stage where the rocket breaks apart, the second stage, the third stage where it's just now sending the warhead into space to come back down. Now, these are dummy warheads. There's no nukes on this, but it's the same weight and the same size. It's how they test how they're going to deliver these nukes if they need to. That's the whole point of this entire thing. So this craft comes into frame, beams a light at the warhead, zips around. Now this is moving at thousands of miles per hour, and it's keeping up with it. And not only, but circling around it, it shoots 3 beams of light at the warhead.
Right.
And suddenly the warhead tumbles out of space.
Yeah.
And the major turns to Lieutenant Jacobs and goes, "What the hell is that?" Jacobs couldn't believe his eyes, and he sits there and he scratches his head. He looks at the 2 men in civilian suits sitting across from him, and he goes, "Well, I think what we have here is a UFO." And everyone kind of looks at each other in the room, and some more is discussed that we're not privy to, but it ended with the Major turning to Jacobs and saying, "This never happened."
Yeah.
And he told Jacobs that if he were to ever be pressed about this in the future, or what went wrong, that he were to tell he was supposed to call it laser strikes. Laser strikes took it down, something that was vague and didn't even exist within their technology in 1964. So for 18 years, Lieutenant Jacobs, the only man on this team, the only man on the team that knew about what was actually in the footage, and one of the only people that knew about it at Vandenberg Base, Air Force Base, kept the secret for the Air Force under direct orders. He finally told his story because it bothered him for years that no one knew about it, that he knew this thing, that he knew what he saw, and no one was discussing it. And he felt kind of like the story that came out in the New York Times in December about the Pentagon and the study of craft at the Pentagon and the Black Books operations going there, that a lot of this stuff needs to get funding for it, and awareness needs to be raised so people take these issues seriously.
I would agree with that.
He decided to talk about this because he realized that the incident had never been technically classified as top secret. He had just been said not to say anything.
It was like a Harvey Weinstein thing.
Right.
Like,
Totally.
This didn't happen.
Exactly. This didn't happen. So he came out and told the story to a reporter. And,
to no consequence. That's why you were saying it's not top secret.
Well,
that's why he said it.
But what happened was the Air Force denied it. The Air Force denied that he was ever at Vandenberg. They denied that he was ever part of this film crew.
Little career wash.
And he says this, he started getting harassing phone calls. People blew up his mailbox. People told him that he was fucking dead, that they were going to kill, just threatening him that he was over, he was through. He would get calls in the middle of the night. He started being made fun of by other Air Force people. And he's like, he goes, I don't give a flip. I don't care what they do to me. I know what I saw. I know what this is. Because people, I think one of the ways they help keep some of this stuff under wraps is by making fun of anyone who brings it up.
Sure.
Right. It's classic.
Discredit the witness.
It's Russia stuff.
Throw in some disinformation, and you're perfect.
Yeah.
Right. And they denied it had ever happened, and have even gone as far as to deny that Jacobs served for the Air Force, even though public records show that he in fact did. So that is a strange case.
Now, can I ask a question?
Please.
What are other countries' laws or governmental things about aliens? And I guess that brings me back to the CIA and worldwide. I guess they're all in cahoots in that same way. Like, is there kind of an international agreement, or does Germany handle it differently? Or
every country deals with it in their own right. And, I've always liked to put it this way, to hopefully alleviate some of and to help with your question. Nobody knows, right?
Yeah.
The Americans and the CIA don't know. The Russians and they don't know. The Chinese, they're not really sure.
Well, and they treat this stuff like you would top secret weapons programs, because it's all technology, right? It's sort of like an arms race. So for example, if we had found a crashed flying saucer at Roswell, we'd want to recover it, study it, build on it retroactively.
Right, true. It's like we're giving away our secrets.
Yeah, it's top secret. We don't want to share that
them.
information because they could use it against us, right?
Yeah,
so
right.
It's
not
under
just
military.
It's not
stuff.
just alien stuff to them.
Right. But okay, so we're going to
sense.
take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to ask Jen what the hell was that?
Oh, I love it.
Hey guys, Bryce Johnson here. Each week, we post exclusive photos with our guests and great visual aids on Instagram at Bigfoot Collectors Club and on Facebook and Twitter at Bigfoot_C Club. Check them out. You don't want to miss them. Thanks for listening.
And we're back, and now it's time for
Jen to figure this all out.
What the hell was that?
What the hell was that, Jen?
Okay, so you want my theory on everything?
Yeah,
sure.
All right.
You got to make a decision. I mean, if you're going to give your best guess, what is going on
Who
here?
is the Solway Firth Spaceman?
Okay, I'm going to take it real crazy. There's one option, which is it's an actual spaceman, and he's very against nukes, and he's trying to give us a message. And it's us from the future, or it's some other thing, and their planet got nuked, and they want to help us. Could all be that. We could go more, I don't know what the word is with it, to like devil angel stuff.
Okay.
Demonic angelic, sure.
Like, it's evil and this energy's coming out that's for some reason able to combat it. Like people who see the Virgin Mary statues weeping.
Mm-hmm.
This could be miraculous in that sense. This could be more of like a ghost energy that represents positivity, and I'm stopping, like, and I'm not saying it's not alien related.
No, this is one of the
But
things
I don't think it's an actual man.
That's okay. This is one of the things that confounds people because it falls under just so many categories. Is it a glitch in the Matrix? Is it an alien that's invisible to the naked eye but present to the camera?
Why is it de-arming our nukes?
Well, yeah, why is it de-arming? Or is it a ghost?
Right,
Because a lot
and
of time, because a lot of times the ghost it feels more like a ghost phenomenon of an image of a person showing up in a photograph. That's more aligned with ghost stuff.
Like, I feel like that's how Jesus, like, if we're going to believe in Jesus and he comes back, like, I feel like that's how you would do it.
Well,
I don't think it's Jesus. I also think it's maybe that these aliens, if it is one, can turn themselves invisible. Like, they've captured the power of invisibility.
Right.
Or we're in on it too in our minds. I don't know.
Well, you know what?
I think it's something miraculous.
If you look at that spacesuit, it doesn't seem like the spacesuit of 2017.
No, and also I want to point out
it looks
too,
like Back to the Future.
I think part of it is called spacesuit because I think a lot of people think that that this figure is facing forward.
I
and
believe
that
he is.
I don't think he is. I think he's got his back turned. If you look at the photo, you can see the. I think that this black part is actually the
hair?
back of the head. And there looks like there's almost a hoodie here.
I thought that was the visor
shoulder
of the
blades,
helmet.
But look at the way that the elbow is bent.
And we'll
I don't
post this
think it's
online for you
this.
guys to see. Let me
Yeah,
see that
just
again,
Google
Mike.
Solway Firth.
and I think the
Spaceman.
pictures of the spacemen, they don't look like they're wearing helmets either.
Right, in the video. Now, here's the
video,
thing.
yeah.
Skeptics like UFO author David Clerk insisted that the figure must have been Annie wandering into frame, her blue dress washed out by the exposure of the lens. But even when compared to other images of Annie in her blue dress, to me, it is clearly not the same person nor the same sex, and the figure only appears in one of the 3 photos that Elizabeth posed for. Plus, they all insisted that she didn't wander into frame. Now, this picture supposedly shows the mother, Annie, in her blue dress, and this is what they like to compare and say this was washed out and we're seeing the back of her head. But here's the thing. I actually don't think that's Annie. I think that looks like a little girl to me on the right, whose head is cropped out of frame. I think that is not Annie. I think the mother. I think that might be Francine, Elizabeth's 9-year-old sister.
You know,
and the two of them are sitting. It doesn't look like a mom at all.
It looks like
a little
someone
girl
crawling.
I want to focus on this spaceman again. To me, this looks like he's facing right into camera, and that this whole black front is the visor of the helmet.
Right.
And if you look close, it almost looks like he's wearing a medallion, a necklace, some sort of who knows? But that to me, that looks like
show Riley too.
To me, that looks like the visor of a 1980s style astronaut's helmet.
It looks like
and it seems to be he's wearing some sort of a necklace or a medallion.
He almost looks like Marty McFly.
Completely looks like Marty McFly.
Absolutely.
When he puts the Van Halen on him.
Right,
It's exactly what it looks
He
like.
calls himself Darth Vader.
Yeah, you know, so why are these things we're seeing always just like kind of like always about 10 years ahead of our technology? If these are really space-faring travelers, wouldn't they be coming in like light ships that you see on like the new Star Wars movie or something? Or who knows, right? Why is it always just so out of reach?
Riley, do you think that figure is facing forward or to camera or away from camera? I'm firmly believing it's looking off over the hill.
I think it kind of actually does look like he's looking to camera. He also has a very self-assured posture about him. He's really kind of like...
I think it's this.
I see that. I see it with
you guys
the visual.
think it's this.
Yeah, I do. Because
if you're gonna appear, why wouldn't you look in camera?
I don't know.
Yeah, and well, that black, it just looks like a visor to me.
Right.
You know.
No,
just
that's what
like
most.
A,
That's
like
why
a fighter jet's
That's what most
visor.
people think so too.
Although, if it is a person of color, that could be a halo over their head and a white robe, and it again could be Jesus.
You know, you're out. Hey, listen, but let's put it back in. Let's put it back into context. What I love about this story is a guy at the Australian base says, "Hey, I saw something in the newspaper. We just had an incident here at our military base where we're all scrambling around going, what the fuck is that? You know, and I think there might be a correlation here. And then, oh my God, that
That was so scary.
Wasn't that so creepy? Rachel's looking in the window.
I actually, continue, but I think something, this helmet is actually a cloud above his head. I think it's a cloud.
You might be right. I mean, and we implore our listeners to, hey, look at this. We'll post it up on our Instagram, too.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. And they say that might be Annie wearing a hat as well. And then it's the back of her head. I don't know. It's so weird, and the angle of him is weird, too. It's almost as if he's floating.
Yeah. Yeah,
right?
It does seem like his feet are not on the ground.
It's crazy. And just remember that the facility where they built the missile that was being launched in Australia is just over the hillside.
Well, and
off in the distance.
Another great thing about this story is this is kind of the first time we get a clear depiction of the Men in Black, and it's in print, because what like you mentioned, Michael, after this happened to him, 2 guys did show up at his door asking him to take him back to the Solway Firth field.
If that story is true.
Yeah.
If Jim Templeton is not making that up.
Right. That's wild.
What's the picture of Annie? The other one, what is
That's
this white
Elizabeth.
thing? Oh, what's this white thing on her head, though?
Oh, I think that's just the sunlight hitting the top of her head.
Okay.
I don't know. Anyway, there you go. It's a crazy story. It's a spooky photo. We'll put it up, and we'll throw some links in our show notes about all the stuff that you need to check out too. We're going to come back for our final segment and chat a little bit more with Jen and say goodbye.
Yes.
We'll see you right back here in a second.
Hey guys, don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Bigfoot Collectors Club and on Twitter at Bigfoot_C Club.
And we're back, and it's time for Collector's Corner. This is the collecting portion of the podcast.
Yes.
Jen, did you ever collect anything growing up?
TV guides.
Oh, wow.
Dynamite Magazine.
Oh, dude, we've talked about Dynamite Magazine on this before.
I was published in it. Thank you.
What? Tell us
It's
that
framed on
story.
my wall. I don't even remember doing it. I just...
Wrote a letter in?
Yeah, I wrote a letter. It was like...
David Cassidy?
I forget who was on the cover. It might have been Fonzie. And it said... Dear Dynamite, here's 3 things you never hear one grown-up say to another grown-up. I believe that had probably been a suggestion of theirs.
This is like your early material.
Yeah, I was 8. I was really into writing when I was 8. I won like a contest, and I was like, I'll just submit to magazines.
Oh, that's wild.
I really don't remember writing this, and it's all weirdly sexual. It's like 3 things you never hear another grown-up say to another, like, you deserve a spanking. 2, like, don't eat with your mouth full. And 3, like, something else wildly sexual that I didn't realize was.
What was it?
I don't remember. It's on my wall at home. I can take a picture and send it to you guys.
Please do. We'll put it up on our Instagram feed for sure.
Yeah, but I
Please
collected
do.
that, Dynamite Magazine, TV Guide. I would say Barbie dolls, but not really. It's just like you have a bunch. It's not the same as action figures you're like trying to collect.
Right.
I actually did have a few Star Wars action figures, but only because I felt I was supposed to. Then when I realized you didn't have to like just like it because everyone did, I'm like, oh, okay, never mind. And then I did. No, I think that was it. Is more literature, such as the television guide.
Do you still have that collection today? I mean, do you?
My mom threw it out when I was in college, and I was like, I know, because back then when she threw it out, there was still the TV guide in the tiny book form. But there's a friend of mine has a podcast about the TV guide, and he has a collection, and he gave me.
Plug it. What's the show?
I forget the name. That's what I didn't say.
We'll look it up.
Yeah, look it up.
Do that at home.
Yeah, listen. Stay with this podcast. Right?
That's right.
He gave me the one with the movie, speaking of nukes, the day after on the cover.
Oh, wow.
So I have that at my house
Which
right now.
took place in Lawrence, Kansas,
That's
not far
right.
from where I grew up.
That's why I'm so starstruck by you always.
Yes, exactly. Now, do you remember was it that, or do you have a specific cover that you loved? Do you remember your favorite?
Moonlighting.
Oh gosh.
Oh, that was the best.
That was my favorite cover. I don't remember. I just know it was Moonlighting. I don't know what it looked like, but that was it.
David and Madison.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just knew in my heart we're not going to have a TV guide in the future that's going to look like this, and I'm going to be happy I saved these. And I was right. My mom threw them out.
Great. Thank
I also for the first time in my life just bought magazine covers, those little plastic things.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
I
Did
have-
you preserve them?
I have-
polymer bags, poly bags.
So I just put a bunch in a little thing I have. So I guess currently I have a collection of something that's really embarrassing. Every magazine cover that Nirvana and Hole ever did.
Oh, that's great.
So I just have a collection of that.
That's
It's like
fantastic.
so that's all I collect. They're all magazine oriented.
That's great.
That's all
well,
right.
I'm a
That
comic book
works.
collector, so that I get it.
I felt like one when I was putting it in the plastics.
Yeah. I know what it's like to feel lonely and
Yeah.
ashamed.
Well, I brought you something for today for the collector's portion, and I hope you're into Bigfoot jewelry.
Of course I am.
Who isn't? Because here is
This is on Bryce's QVC channel.
Yes, here is an Oster Pearl Patty Bigfoot given to me by Tom Yamarone.
Oh my God, I love it.
Who they call the Bob Dylan of Bigfoot music. And
Beautiful,
That's
actually.
something that everybody needs to listen to.
yeah, and so he gave me there was a guy who makes them. There's a small inner circle of people who have those. Bob Gimlin's one included, but it's something I treasure.
That looks really good on you. Jen has her. Do you have a jewelry line?
No, it ended December 31st.
All right, well, fuck that.
It was a limited edition.
You snooze, you lose, people.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah.
We have to get a picture of this thing.
Great. Oh, we definitely will. Well, thank you so much. We're going to wrap it up. It's another session. We just thank everybody for following the show.
That was a fun one.
And listen, keep writing in with your stories, BigfootCollectorsClub@gmail.com. We're on Instagram at BigfootCollectorsClub. Jen, is there anything you'd like to plug, or where can people find you?
I would say just go to my website, JenKirkman.com, one N in Jen. And from there, you can find my Twitter and my Facebook and my tour dates and my books and all my kind of stuff.
Awesome.
So come see me.
Great.
I'd like people to come see me do a live show.
Great.
We'd love to do that. Will you wear that necklace?
Of course. I'm never taking it off.
Now, wait a minute. No.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Before we go, Bryce, quick, anything?
Just follow us on Bigfoot Collectors Club here on Instagram and on Twitter. And
check our show notes for any links. And we're on Facebook, and we're going to throw up all these photos, especially that Solway Firth one. It's going to be awesome. Thanks, as always, to Riley Bray for our sound and the band Sun Eaters for our music from the song Come Alone, courtesy of Lotus Pool Records.
See you next week.